Buddha.
Good evening, everyone. Welcome to the show. I have a special guest here with me today. I have MLB official scorer Howie Carpin on the show with me here today. How's everybody doing on this Wednesday evening? Make sure you all hit that like button, hit that subscribe button, share this channel out with everyone you know. I would greatly appreciate it. We are slowly closing in on 1,300 subscribers. Again, I have Howie Carpin on the show with me here today. Howie, how's it going?
Good, buddy. Good to be with you.
Yeah, no, I appreciate you coming on. Joe, our friend Joe, reached out to us last minute and said that you'd be happy to come on and share some things with us. But I know the off season. It's been a very interesting off season so far. I want to get your thoughts. Let's get your thoughts on Juan Soto signing with the New York Mets. How did you feel about that? Did you feel like it was a loss for the Yankees, or did you feel like it may have been a blessing in disguise?
Well, I wrote a column on New York Sports Day the other day. Look, that's a big loss for the lineup. He was a key contributor last year. They probably don't make the World Series without him, as you saw in the postseason what he did. But even with him in the lineup, they were a top-heavy lineup. The bottom of their order was, bereft of really a lot of production. Anyway, even with those two back-to-back, they lacked the leadoff presence to really take advantage of the two of them. And they were searching for a cleanup hitter for a lot of last season. They really didn't have a steady presence there. So, look, the Mets, moved in. They wanted him. They gave him a lot of money and a lot of perks that he wanted. I think what we're seeing, to be honest with you, is that he's a little bit of a diva. That doesn't mean he's not going to be very productive for the Mets in the future and help them win. But right now they're under the gun, to win a couple of championships with him, and their team is still incomplete as far as I'm concerned. The Yankees are incomplete too, but they've taken some of the right steps to fill some of these holes. I like the fact that they've admitted that they weren't a good defensive team. We heard some whispers early on in the offseason. They were like in a state of denial, in a lot of ways. I mean, the last time I was on the show was before the playoffs, and we talked about how the flaws may cost them in the playoffs. Luckily, they were able to get past the first two rounds because they played inferior teams that they were better than, obviously. Everyone says they had a free ride. It's not that easy. They could have got knocked off by Kansas City. They could have got knocked off by Cleveland, but they made the right plays, and their flaws didn't come back to haunt them. Yet those flaws came to light against the Dodgers in the World Series, a much better team and a step up in competition. So I like the fact that they realize they have to be better defensively. They have to get more athletic. They need to take advantage of the running game a little more, which they did in game one against L.A. Chisholm stole two bases, manufactured a run. If they could have held on to the lead, they'd be praising them for having the ability to use that running game to get a lead. If you're going to have good pitching, you got to be able in these close games to manufacture runs. Their record in extra inning games last year was atrocious, even with the extra runner, especially, at home. When you're at home and you're getting a runner placed on second base, you got to win those home games in extra innings. And they had a very poor record with that. And those things came back to haunt them. So I like the fact that they realize what their flaws were and they're trying to address them now in the offseason.
Yeah, and you know what, Howie? I think that, losing Soto to the Mets, I feel like this lit a fire under Hal. And I mean, maybe I'm wrong. I know you've been watching the Yankees for a very long time. I know you're still, you still talk with some of the folks that are involved in your organization. But have you ever seen Hal Steinbrenner in this way, like for him to pivot very quickly, because I feel like the inner George in him has awoken and is just like, okay, well, they stole, I don't want to say stole, but they took Soto away from us. I need to act fast, and I need to act quick. And they've done just that. They signed Max Fried to a very long-term deal. They signed back Loaizaga, which I was a little surprised about, I'll be honest. They traded for Devin Williams, which was a move that I don't think any of us really saw coming. And then they traded for Cody Bellinger yesterday. I feel like they've pivoted quick, and they're not done by a long shot. They are acknowledging the fact that they, like you said, that they do need to improve, especially with defense. I mean, Brian Cashman did acknowledge that himself. What they've made a few moves. How do you feel about the moves that they've made, and what do you think is next? What do you think the Yankees are going to do next?
Well, they did something similar in 2009, but not after they lost a free agent. I mean, they filled holes very quickly and used their money, and obviously that paid off, with the World Championship. They're going to have to really, improve that infield defense, especially bringing in a Max Fried, who gets a lot of ground balls. I like Fried a lot. I know they had to overpay, but I've seen this guy pitch, and I know that, if I was an opposing team and I know I had to go up against him, that he was going to give the Braves an excellent shot to win their game that he pitched. He's going to scare opposing teams. He has that kind of presence. He's very intelligent on the mound. He's got good stuff. He knows how to make adjustments. And look, they had to overpay here. You hope to get 5 years out of the deal, even though you gave him 8. You hope the first 5 will pay off in a World Series or two. But this is a great addition to their lineup. Obviously, you got to worry about a little bit about the forearm situation that cropped up last year. But he still made 29 starts, even though he missed time. So, and he's made a minimum of 29 starts in 4 out of the last 5 years where there's been a full season, obviously excluding 2020. So, this is a guy who fits in as a number 2 behind Cole. That pushes Rodon or Heel to number 3 and 4. It lengthens their rotation. He's another left-hander who's going to take advantage of Yankee Stadium, and he's not afraid. He's been in tough spots. He's been in postseason. He brings a good pedigree to them. Bellinger was a nice get. They needed another left-hand bat. You lost Verdugo. Not that he was any great shakes, but he's still lefty. Obviously, losing Soto is a big hit. They needed another left-hand bat. I think they're going to put a lot of stock in Dominguez for this year. I actually like to see, I think Bellinger should not even play center. He should play left and let Dominguez play center, because they fooled around a little with Dominguez in season. He's a 21-year-old kid who played mostly center field. Then you're moving him over to left field. It's not that easy to move from center to a corner, especially at Yankee Stadium with all that ground he has to cover. I think he got too entrenched with his defense, and it kind of hurt his offense down the stretch. He batted 179. He wasn't the same offensive player that we saw when he first came up. Not that you expect him to be, but you didn't expect him to be so bad. I really think his defense got in his head, and now he's got this narrative that he may not be a good defender. I don't buy it. I saw him in center field. He was much better. Sometimes the Yankees get a little too cute where they bring in somebody and they don't make them comfortable. Look, Jazz Chisholm, to his credit, took the move to third, without any qualms. That's to his credit. But he was an inexperienced third baseman, and you saw some mistakes that they had to live with. Obviously they had Gleyber Torres at second, so they couldn't move him. I'd like to see them move him back to second and maybe fill the third base slot with somebody else. This way Chisholm's more comfortable at second base. But, they're making the right moves. They have the right ideas. They're not done yet. There's still moves to be made. They have to shore up that infield, especially at the corners. So it's going to be interesting to see, what moves they make, in the future. I'm thinking that, I think they have some interest in Carlos Santana at first base. He'd be a very inexpensive option. He'd maybe take, a 2-year deal at a good price. This is a guy who comes off a Gold Glove season, still hit 23 homers playing in Minnesota, which is not an easy place to hit. and he'd benefit from playing at Yankee Stadium and in the Yankee lineup. Plus, he gives you some solid defense at first base. Now, his range, may not be as great as before, but he did win a Gold Glove. So, a lot of times these defensive metrics don't always add up, but he certainly, I think, would be a good get for that corner. Plus, he's a switch hitter. So he'd be batting lefty a lot of times at Yankee Stadium, and he could poke those into the short right field seats. Plus, if you have Chisholm at second, Chisholm has good range. So maybe he can make up for Santana's lack of range at first. I know they're looking at Christian Walker. I don't know how much interest they have in Pete Alonso. I'll be honest with you. I'd take a shot at Alonso if the price was right. Everyone talks about, he's not a good defender. I'll tell you where he has problems. He has problems making throws. And that's something you can coach with the right, instruction. He's good on the scoop. He makes some diving plays at first, and then he has problems when he has to get up and make the throw to first or the throw to second. I think you can improve there, and he works hard. I've seen him before games. He's always working on his defense, and he's another guy who could poke him into the right field seats. You're going to have to provide some protection for Judge, behind him in the lineup. Soto batted in front of Judge. Yeah, that was a factor in helping Judge do what he did. They're going to have to find somebody else to bat in front of him, but they're going to have to find somebody else to bat behind them. So there's still things to be done here.
Yeah, there's a lot of moving pieces when it comes to the Yankees right now. So they, the infield is something that is of importance. And I'm happy that you brought up Bellinger because, I was having this conversation yesterday when they traded for him. I went live when the news broke out. And, I was saying, Bellinger, I'm right there with you. Bellinger should be playing left field, put Dominguez in center, put Judge in right. And, that's a solid outfield right there. Everybody's playing in their right position. And I think a guy like Bellinger could play left field. And speaking of that, they did ask Aaron Boone whether or not he would just be playing center field, and he, they told him, yeah, that's not true. That's fake news. Like he is going to play. There's options. He could play first base. He could play center field. He could play left field. So I was glad Boone came out and said that. But that is the perfect outfield, though. That is the way they should play that. Hopefully they play that and they don't get too cute, like you said, and put Bellinger in left, Dominguez in center. Judge and right. I mean, everybody's playing in their right position. I don't think you could go wrong with that. Now with the infield, that's the tricky part. First base, second base. I feel like there are holes. Although, like you said, they could move Jazz Chisholm there, but I do get the feeling that they might leave Jazz Chisholm at third. It wouldn't surprise me if they did. I think he would be fine at third base. I know he's never played third base prior to coming to the Yankees. However, we did hear earlier today that Nolan Arenado blocked the trade to the Houston Astros, which now begs the question, could the Yankees be in play for a guy like Nolan Arenado? Is that a possibility where if they get him, they could put him at third base and then move Jazz Chisholm to second, and then first base is still open? I know you mentioned Santana. The Yankees could sign him to a 1-year deal. I know a guy like, let's say, you brought up Christian Walker, which, it sounds like a lot of people are linking the Yankees and Christian Walker together. They're connecting the two for quite some time. I don't know. The Yankees, I'm not so sure. I like Christian Walker, but I don't know. I know how the Yankees are when it comes to QOs. And because I know they don't want to lose any of the IFA money or lose draft picks, because I know the Yankees value those things. So I just wanted to get your thoughts on that. But yeah, there's a lot of options. There's a lot of different ways that the Yankees could go about this.
There's going to be competition for Christian Walker from what they're saying. The Mariners are interested. Mm-hmm. I know the Mariners are in on, they may even get Alonso. They were rumored to be in on him earlier in the offseason. The Astros need a first baseman. They're not sold on John Singleton over there. Obviously Jose Abreu didn't work out. So there's competition for Walker. As far as Jazz at third, I worry a little bit about his arm. His arms, he's got a strong arm, but he's a little erratic over there. He's pretty good on the double play at second. And Arenado had that list of team supposedly that he would be willing to go to when the Yankees weren't on it. I had heard that he would waive his no trade to go to the Bronx. Don't forget, he has a full no trade. It's not a list of teams that he can be traded to. That's just being reported where he may prefer to be traded to. It doesn't mean the Yankees are out of the equation. He wants to be traded to a team that's going to contend, and is going to do everything they can to contend. The Yankees certainly fit that profile. So, yeah, he's not out of the question. Obviously, the metric people think that he's on the downside offensively. Who knows? Maybe a change of scenery will reignite his offense. I don't buy into all this metric prediction stuff. He's on the downside. He's this, he's that. I don't buy into that a lot. Sometimes it's where you're at. It's who you're playing with. People say Pete Alonso's on the downside because his last 2 years haven't been that great. He still hit, 34 homers last year in a bad year. Who's to say that he's not going to have a rebound year next year, that he's not in the walk year of his contract? I was at the last game in 2023 when the Mets were eliminated by the Padres. And I could tell you, Pete Alonso was very upset that they fired Buck Showalter. Now you bring in Carlos Mendoza, who did a great job last year. There's no question about it. He guided them after they got down 11 and 500, and they rallied to make the playoffs, and they made a great run. I don't know if Carlos Mendoza got the best out of Pete Alonso. So who knows? Who knows? Maybe Alonso was still brooding over losing Buck. He was very close to Buck Showalter when Showalter came in. So who knows what the effect is when he'll be with another team. You can make the assumption that he may have a better year than last year. To totally bury a guy on these metric formulas and these supposed predictors of performance, I just don't buy into that a whole lot. I really don't. I look at the player himself. He's not that old. I can see why you don't want to give him a 6-7 year deal. He's 31 years old. Yeah, to generalize that he's a right-handed hitter, so it makes a difference if you're a righty or lefty, maybe in Yankee Stadium. But, I mean, to make a difference out of that, to me, is nonsense. It really doesn't wash. Same thing with the defensive metrics. I remember Lorenzo Cain, remember him from the Brewers. The defensive metrics on him was, he can't play center anymore. And then they moved him to right. Well, they moved him back to center, and he had a great year defensively. Some of these metric formulas really have a lot of flaws that you can poke holes. I'm big on the eye test. I know that's a dinosaur way of looking at things, supposedly. I'm big on what I see, and I have a pretty good scouting eye. And I like what I've seen out of certain players. I would take a shot on Arenado, even though he'll cost some money and some players. The fact you're going to have to pick up the money in the contract will lessen what you have to send back personnel-wise. He's still more than capable at third defensively, which is something they need. And he could probably help Volpe in that regard too, because to me, Anthony Volpe took a little bit of a step back last year, even defensively. He made some errors on routine throws. Who could forget that game in Baltimore before the All-Star break where his error essentially set up the winning rally for the Orioles? Look, I'm not blaming him, for certain things, but he made some routine errors that he's got to clean up, and there's going to be pressure on him. This his third year now. He's got to take a step forward. Last year I looked up his record. His first 2 months, he was terrific. He had some really good numbers. And the last 4 months, he kind of fell off the cliff a little bit, showed a little life in the World Series, but you can't have 4 months of where you score maybe 39 runs in 4 months when you score 19 runs in the first 2 months. So he's got to score more runs. He's got to steal more bases. So he's going to be under the gun, and maybe bringing in a guy like Arenado can help him. He could be a little more comfortable. I had a funny feeling last year when they moved Chisholm to third. I know there's no evidence of it, but I don't know how well he clicked with Chisholm for some reason. You didn't see a whole lot of camaraderie between the two if you watch the games closely. There wasn't a pat on the back for certain plays or even a pointing at the guy, from each other. You know what I'm saying? So who knows what the camaraderie between the two of them were. Maybe they didn't click as well as it appeared to be. So, to maybe bring in somebody like an Arenado who Volpe can respect, maybe that's going to help his game as well.
Yeah, I see your point there. Having a veteran presence on the team, it always helps. I mean, the Yankees, for example, they had that with with Anthony Rizzo for a few years, where you had that veteran presence, and he was a good role model for his teammates, especially with guys like Aaron Judge, because I know Aaron Judge really took away a lot from a guy like Rizzo. But that you do bring up a good point though with Arenado. I don't know if the Yankees are looking to trade for him. I'm not sure what the Yankees are going to. Again, the infield is a tricky situation, and there's a lot of different ways they could go about it. I know, last week there was a lot of chatter about the Yankees and Alex Bregman. Do you foresee something like that happening, or what have you been hearing from the Yankees or Yankees organization in terms of what players they could be looking into or who they're exploring?
Well, you got to remember, Bregman is a Boras client, Scott Boras.
Yeah.
So he's always going to tie the Yankees in to get the price up. I don't see the Yankees spending a lot of money there on Bregman. He's asking for a lot. I think the Red Sox are going to be in on Bregman. I really do. It appears Houston is out, that they wanted Arenado and they brought in Paredes from the Cubs. It appears they feel they're not going to be able to sign him. I know the Red Sox are high on him. He could pound balls off the left field wall of Fenway. I don't see the Yankees meeting his high price right now. And again, the Yankees are always involved with a Boras client because he knows, that teams are going to up the ante when the Yankees are involved. So, to say the chatter about him is there, sure. I don't know how high they are in Bregman, to fill that spot at the price he's asking. So I don't know what direction they're going to go. I don't know. I don't know how many more alternatives they have in that regard. I'm hearing that they may take a shot at bringing Gio Urshela back, but that would be more of like a backup role, not so much as a starter.
Okay.
Because they like what they had in Gio when he was here, and he's certainly capable of filling, a number of positions in the infield. But I think that's more for depth than for starting purposes. So, obviously they want to get this done before spring training and, strike while the iron is hot, so to speak. So I think we could expect something maybe before the end of the year. What that is, I mean, your guess is probably as good as mine right now.
Yeah, I'm in a group chat with some of the other content creators on YouTube, and we're in a group chat together, and we're constantly exploring who the Yankees could go after, whether it's in a trade or a free agent signing, because again, they do need to figure out that infield part, especially first base. That I think that's going to be the next position that they're going to go after. So I know there's been a lot of names linked to the Yankees. The Yankees supposedly have interest. I'm sure the Yankees reach out to all the players that could be available, just kind of doing their due diligence. So I know Christian Walker's name has been mentioned a lot. I mean, you heard Goldschmidt, Santana, Pete Alonso, right? That's another name. I mean, realistically, I know you talked about Alonso. Do you see the Yankees making an offer for him? And I know he's another Scott Boras client. Or do you think the Yankees are going to explore first base elsewhere, whether they're in free agent signing, or do you think they'll look at a trade? Another name that's been coming up has been Nathaniel Lowe from the Texas Rangers, that fans have been talking about.
Yeah, I know. I don't know about him. I'm not that high on him right now.
Mm-hmm.
I know they, even Christian Walker is a righty. If you're going to bring in a righty, Alonso at least would provide a little more protection behind Judge. Stanton was brought in with that idea, and that really hasn't panned out until the postseason, when he had a great postseason, to his credit. I've always liked Stanton, even though he hasn't been productive during the regular season. He hasn't stayed on the field, but he never complains. He's always stand up with the media. I respect Stanton. I wish he'd have some better. He'd be more like that MVP that he was with Miami. That hasn't panned out in a lot of ways. And plus, he's getting a little older now. They have 3 more years of him. I don't know how high Alonso could be at, overpricing himself. Maybe the Yankees are waiting to see if the price drops. Supposedly he's had interest in the Yankees, from his end. So I don't know. Would he take a 3-year deal from the Yankees and gamble, maybe 3 years and an option or 4 years and an option. I don't think they want to give him 6 or 7 years. That's what he may be seeking. A lot of this comes down to what they're asking. Not so much even the Yankees have interest in these guys, but how much interest does the player have when he wants to? This is Alonso's big opportunity. He's not going to have too many more free agent opportunities to cash in than he does now. Now, his walk year was costly. It kind of lowered his value and then fed into the narrative that he's on the downside. He's only 31 years old. He's not that old yet. Yeah, right. He's going to be older in 6 years, but he's also a guy at least stays on the field. He doesn't get hurt a whole lot, and he plays, to his credit. So I think that's one factor that they're peddling to interested teams. I could see the Yankees maybe pursuing that. I don't know if, again, I don't think they want to go 6, 7 years. Same thing with Bregman. They went 8 with Fried because there was a lot of competition for Fried. And now you have another competitor in the Mets. The Mets you could always dismiss, when the Wilpons owned them because you knew they wouldn't go to these extremes like they did with Soto. Now they're a main competitor. I'm sure they were looking to sign Max Fried. Even though there were talks that David Stearns doesn't sign pitchers to long contracts. So the Yankees had to overpay if they wanted to get this guy. And again, this guy's a good get. He really is. I mean, he knows how to pitch. He's one of the best left-handers in the game. And again, they lengthened their starting rotation. It's nice to see that they're getting back to the priorities of the starters. It seems like the sport is going back to, the priority of starters more so than they've been in recent years. Too many teams rely on the bullpen. You can't live off your bullpen in the regular season. You don't get the off days. Sometimes you play 20 days in a row. What if you get now you don't have the long extra inning games, but what if you have to go extra innings where you do play 12, 13, where you use up your bullpen, then next night your starter doesn't give you length? That's a cycle that can add up after a while. In the playoffs, it's different because you're getting that off day after 2 games. Or even after 1 game now with the crazy schedule. So you can live off your bullpen in the postseason. You can't do that in the regular season, and teams are finally coming to grips with that. So I like the fact that the Yankees are prioritizing their starting rotation.
Yeah, the starting rotation. Pitching is always important in baseball. We all know that. Pitching wins games. At the end of the day, pitching wins games. That's how you win championships. And yeah, they did have to overpay for Max Fried, but when it comes to pitching, teams are going to overpay. That's just the way it goes. It's part of the business, as you know, in baseball. You're going to overpay for pitching. It comes and it does come at a premium. When it comes to the Yankees starting lineup, with the addition of Max Fried, I feel like it's a big upgrade. Do you see the Yankees potentially adding another starter to that rotation, or do you think they're pretty well set in their current rotation?
Well, I think they may use that starting rotation to try and make another deal. Everyone wants to get rid of Marcus Stroman. They think he's like a dog. But if they have to use Clark Schmidt in a deal that could really benefit them, it's not so terrible that Stroman is your 5th starter. How many teams can claim they even have 4 really solid starters, much less 5? Your 5th starter is a throwaway. He's a guy you just want you to give you some innings. He doesn't have to be a Cy Young winner. It's what you put together with the other 4, and then you have your 5th guy as almost like a guy that will give you 5, 6 innings in every outing. Stroman at least has shown he can be able to do that on a consistent basis. So if they have to use Clark Schmidt, who has more value in a trade than Stroman does right now. Look, I wouldn't want to give up Clark Schmidt. I was high on him from the start, even 2 years ago when he didn't show a whole lot yet. I liked what I saw from Clark Schmidt. Now, he could be a very attractive chip to get back something that you need elsewhere, because of your starting depth. That's where they use Cortez. He didn't really have a role in the starting rotation except as maybe a 5. So you trade him for a dominant closer. Now you have a dominant closer and you have Luke Weaver as a pretty good setup guy, much better, than what they had last year in Clay Holmes. I know the Mets took Clay Holmes and they're going to try to convert him to be a starter. Good luck, because this is a guy, if you look at his record, he puts more runners on than innings pitched. I look at that. He walks a lot of guys and he gives up a lot of hits. I know he gets a lot of ground balls, and sometimes he needs a real good, strong infield behind him to turn double plays. Like, remember Ivan Nova? That was one of his strengths. Nova could get that double play when he got into trouble. He just didn't do it enough, and a lot of times he got hammered. But he needed a real good infield behind him because even with men on base, he could get out of it. Holmes has the ability to do that, but he gets in trouble with the walks, and he puts too many men on base. Stroman, at least, will give you innings. He's not the greatest. I know people are down on him, but if they have to use like Clark Schmidt as a trade chip, to get something real good, Stroman wouldn't be terrible as a 5.
Yeah, and and that's just it. I will admit, Howie, I am one of those fans that, hey, I think they should look for a way to trade Marcus Stroman and try to get something back. But to your point, yeah, you would get more value back from trading a guy like Clark Schmidt.
Yeah, plus Stroman is hard to deal. He's hard to deal right now. I'm sure they'd like to trade Stroman for something decent or even unload him in some way. But again, if you're stuck with him for another year because you traded Schmidt, you may have to use Schmidt to get an Arenado or somebody of that ilk. So, if you have to use him in that kind of deal, again, I know people were down on him, but as a number 5, it doesn't kill you in a lot of ways. You know what I mean? You take that risk that he'll at least give you the innings and get you through some games to at least take some pressure off your bullpen.
Yeah. Clark Schmidt, like you said, I think he does bring more value. I'm a Clark Schmidt fan as well. I always felt, just like you, he has a lot of potential. I know as a guy that was coming out of the bullpen, I know he had some struggles. However, when they converted him to a starter, he showed a lot of a lot of potential, and I liked what he's done so far. I know in 2024, I would say he had a good season. He did get hurt at one point, so he was out for a little while. But then when he did come back, I mean, it felt like he didn't miss a beat. His
biggest problem. If you watch the games,
yeah.
You get out in front of a guy 1 and 2, and then he wouldn't put him away. It would take him a good 5, 6, 7 pitches to even get the guy out. And that adds up. That's why he always ended up like he's in 90 pitches in the 4th, 5th inning. That's why he didn't give you length a lot of times. For some reason, he had trouble putting hitters away. And you would hope that at least he would progress as the season went on. It used to drive you crazy. He'd look great for the first 3 pitches on a batter, and then that batter would end up seeing 8 pitches at a time. You can't do that if you're going to give length. Obviously he's still young and he could still learn that, but that was his big bugaboo, that he failed to put hitters away when he got them out in front to pitchers' counts. So, he's never going to be, the real successful guy that he could be until he learns to do that. I mean, you hope he does that with the Yankees, but he showed that he has the potential to be a big winner in the major leagues.
Yeah, I'm a Clark Schmidt fan. And you mentioned some of his struggles, and another struggle that he had was he couldn't get through the opposing team's lineup the 3rd time around.
Again, because of the pitch count.
Right?
Yeah, because he had to show all his stuff. And the good pitchers don't show everything right away. They save something for in reserve for the 2nd, 3rd time around. They don't show everything right away. They get through the lineup one time showing something, and then they adjust. It's like, you face a guy, let's say you face a guy like a Soto, and you started him off with a 4-seam fastball the first time around. What's to say the 2nd time around you don't start him? He may be looking for a 4-seam fastball because you started him with that, so you throw him a slider. That's where you get your length, when you're intelligent enough and savvy enough to not show all your stuff. But when you have to throw 7, 8 pitches to a certain batter, not only is he seeing that, the guy on deck is seeing that, the guy in the dugout is seeing that, those batters. So there's no mystery the 2nd or 3rd time around for what you know as well as I do. Sometimes pitchers just don't have it that day, And that's where Fried is good. Fried knows how to make adjustments on the fly. That's what made him successful. But sometimes pitchers don't have it, and they have to go to their reserve. I think Schmidt has the ability to do that, but he hasn't executed.
Yeah, he's got potential. There's things that he certainly needs to work on. I'm assuming he's probably still going to be on this team. Although if he does get traded, it wouldn't surprise me. And then, you would have Marcus Stroman as the number 5 guy, which to me, that's what Stroman is. I mean, he's not an ace type.
Right.
And,
exactly.
And you're not going to have aces. You're not going to have all aces in your rotation.
Right.
I mean, it just doesn't work that way. I mean, but yeah, Stroman could be that number 5 guy. And the way Brian Cashman talked about Stroman, it sounds like he's going to serve some type of role. I don't know, whatever that's going to be. I know the Yankees are not going to go 6-man. They're going to go 5-man, which, speaking of starting pitching, I know, and I'm sure you saw it earlier, but, Cashman did say that they are going to meet with Japanese pitcher Roki Sasaki soon, he said. They didn't say what day or when it was going to happen, but there was going to be a meeting in California.
I heard it's already happened.
Is that right?
I'm hearing it already happened. Yeah.
Whoa. Okay.
That he was one of the first. That they were one of the first. Unless I read that wrong, but he's a guy. I don't know how appealing you read about him that he had trouble with the Japanese media that criticized him in Japan. I don't know if he really wants to come to New York. Even though the Yankees are an attractive option, and even though Masahiro Tanaka is like his idol. I don't know if he really wants to come here. I get, a lot of the Japanese pitchers, they see where Ohtani went. They see where Yu Darvish is in San Diego. That seems to be a more attractive place for these guys to come over. Again, it's funny how each guy that comes through is the next great Japanese guy, You don't know how good these guys are going to be with major league hitters. I know, you can try and get an idea and see what they do in Japan. Now, he's a young guy you're not going to have to give a lot of money to. So that would make sense if you can nab him. But again, you don't know what his interest is going to be in coming here. And this is a guy who had trouble with the Japanese media. He's going to get the same Japanese media wherever he goes, but they kind of protect him a little more in LA and San Diego. That's what I heard they do with Ohtani. They don't give Ohtani a whole lot of access, as much as they would like with all that Japanese media that covers him. They kind of protect him out there. The Yankees could do so much to protect him, but if he's going to have a thin skin, you don't want to come here and not perform. So I don't know how realistic that option is going to be for the Yankees.
Yeah, I'm not sure. I was under the impression they haven't met yet. That they're going to meet. So I know you said you might have read it that they have met.
He has to be signed by the 15th of January, or else he goes back to Japan. So these meetings, if he hasn't taken place with them yet, it'd be any day now, I'm sure.
Yeah, I mean he's in less than a month. So I mean he has a little bit of time to make a decision, but then again, I mean he's got to fit into the schedule of meeting with these teams. So. Do the Yankees? Am I saying that the Yankees are absolutely going to sign? I mean, they could sign him. They have a chance. How big of a chance? I don't know, but I could see him. I honestly, if I'm being realistic, I do see him on the West Coast. I mean, whether it's the Padres, don't be surprised about the Dodgers. I mean, the Dodgers are just signing everybody now. The Mariners could be that could be another team that he could be looking into as well. But I think he could be a West Coast guy. I think he signs with one of the West Coast teams. Any of those. I mean, I don't have a crystal ball in front of me, but I know he's good friends with Yu Darvish. I mean, him and Yu Darvish are good friends. So. That I could see him maybe potentially landing in San Diego. So, yeah, I know he did say the Japanese market, or the Japanese media was a little rough on him, and it kind of messed with him mentally. So, playing in a place like in New York, it could be rough, if he has a rough outing, because some people feel like the whole New York media thing is a myth, but I tend to disagree with that. New York media can be, I feel like they could be a little rough on players.
It's not just being rough; it's the amount of media that's here. You
Mm-hmm.
know, it's almost like Japan itself, and then you bring a Japanese player over. You know, look at Matsui and Masahiro Tanaka. You know, the entourages that they had to deal with. I wasn't that. I'll be honest with you. I wasn't that high on Tanaka when they got him, but he impressed me over the years. I
Mm-hmm.
mean, you know, his pitching intellect and his guts in big spots. I mean, he came through big for the Yankees, and that turned out to be a terrific signing. Another guy, Hiroki Kuroda. You know, I'm impressed with their intellect and their discipline. The Japanese pitchers, you know, more so than I ever was. Kuroda was very smart. He knew how to set up hitters. You know, these guys are pretty smart how they set up the hitters and things like that. But you have to be a little concerned how they're going to handle the pressure here. It's a different ball game here. Excuse the pun. You know, we all know it's totally different playing in New York. That's where the Yankees almost did the Mets a favor because they showed that Juan Soto can play in New York. You know, there was no dip, you know, from him for his performance. He came through. The New York pressure didn't bother him at all. So the Mets were sure when they went all in on him that he could play here. We've seen guys come here and they flop, you know, even though they come here with big reputations. So yeah, you have to take that into account. I think Cody Bellinger will be all right. He's played in Chicago. He's played in LA. You know, he's produced. So I don't think that's going to be a problem either. Nolan Arenado now has played in Colorado and St. Louis. You know, if he comes here, is he going to be, you know, succumb to the New York pressure? We don't know that. You know, he hasn't played in a big market ever. So, you know, St. Louis is a decent market. It's not as big as New York, and they don't boo their players there. They don't pressure their players like we do here. So again, you know, is it going to transcend to New York? You have to consider that when bringing guys in. I like what I saw from Max Fried today at the press conference. Very low-key guy, soft-spoken, but seems to have his head on straight. And this is a guy who's been in pressure situations, even though it was in Atlanta. You know, he's been in postseason. I know his last few postseasons haven't worked out that well. I don't worry about that so much. You know, I think he's going to be a nice fit here.
Yeah, I'm not worried about Max Fried. I think that was a solid addition by the New York Yankees. I mean, aside from Roki Sasaki, do you foresee the Yankees adding another starter, another free agent starter, or you think they're done signing free agent pitchers as of right now with the available pitchers?
I don't think they'd add another starter via free agency. I mean, maybe they have somebody in mind in the minors who could make the jump. You know, if they had it. You know, Luke Weaver used to be a starter. I don't know if they would want to stretch him out. I think they want to keep him in the bullpen. So, you know, I'm not sure what they got in the minor leagues, you know, on the verge. Will Warren just wasn't ready last year. Yeah. You know, maybe he'll be a little more mature this time around. You know, they kind of believe in him. He's another guy maybe they could use in a deal, you know, because he has some value as a young player under control. You know, Spencer Jones is a guy that they may want to use in a deal, although I'd like to see him get a shot at some point. You know, he seems to be a pretty good athlete. So, you know, those are chips maybe where they could use in a trade. I don't see them signing another free agent starter unless it's a very low cost, very inexpensive one.
Yeah, like a free agent starter that I had in mind potentially, and I don't think he would be as expensive as guys like maybe Corbin Burns, who's still a free agent, surprisingly. But then again, he is a Scott Boras client, so the demand, I'm sure what he's demanding is high. But the only other pitcher that I could see the Yankees signing, aside from Roki Sasaki, is potentially Walker Buehler. I could see maybe the Yankees going after him.
Yeah, I like Walker Buehler, and he doesn't have a qualifying offer attached to him.
Yeah,
that would be if I could get him at the right price, I think that would be a nice move, and then you could use one of your other starters as a trade chip. But, you know, he's still out there. I know the Mets are showing interest in him, and I have a feeling he may end up with the Mets than the Yankees.
Oh, well, the Mets need starting pitching. They absolutely need starting pitching because you look at that rotation right now, because I know we were talking about the Mets and how they signed Juan Soto. They do need some work with their starting pitching, because
Yeah,
right now
I wouldn't count the Orioles out of that mix either.
for Bueller,
Yeah.
I could see it, because it doesn't. They signed that. Well, the Orioles did sign that Japanese pitcher to a 1-year deal. It doesn't look like they're going to reunite with Corbin Burns. I
Yeah,
think what
and
Corbin,
Bueller could be a little less expensive than Burns.
definitely Bueller. Another, the other free agent that's out there. Jack Flaherty. He's another name.
Yeah, I'm not that high on Jack Flaherty, to be honest with you.
Fair enough. I mean, I could respect that, but I'm saying, the Orioles or the Mets. I mean, they could potentially look into a guy like Flaherty. Bueller. I know the Red Sox. I know they traded for Crochet. I know they were trying to get these other free agent pitchers, but they kept losing out. Could the Red Sox be another team that could look for another starter? Again, they traded for Crochet from the White Sox. Maybe they look into a guy like Bueller or Jack Flaherty.
Oh, yeah, sure. And
Yeah.
they're looking to sign Bregman, I think, and move Devers to first. That's the plan. They could bring in a third baseman like Bregman, then they'd move Devers to first, because they've got him long-term locked up. So he's going to be there a while. And he's a dangerous hitter, as we all know. So, yeah I could see them going after Walker Bueller or even a Flaherty. Sure.
Yeah, I just throwing out names, throwing out which teams they could potentially sign with, but I don't know, this offseason it's been a very interesting one. I will say, I know the most of the headlines was all Juan Soto. I'll admit, with Juan Soto signing with the Mets, that the night that he signed, I was upset. I was like, oh, this sucks. They lost out on Juan Soto. But, also in the back of my mind, I'm like, this guy was a 1-year rental. There was no guarantee that he was going to sign back with the Yankees. I mean, the Yankees had the advantage because he spent the season there. He got a feel for the organization, for the fans, for the team. But I think at the end of the day, despite what you're hearing in the news about guys like Juan Soto and why, all the, whether it was a security guard issue or whether it was some other issue or whether it was the incentives that was given, because now we're hearing all these things that why Juan Soto would sign with the Mets, because, Steve Cohen's going to, basically just pamper him, from what it sounds like. I think ultimately, it was just about the money. I think the money talks, and I think that's the main reason why he left. Why he didn't sign with the Yankees and decided to go with the Mets.
Yeah, I mean, if you're a Yankee fan, it stung that night when he signed. But here's another thing. He's going to be under even more pressure with the Mets now. Even if the Yankees didn't win the World Series, they didn't get to the World Series last year, he was getting his money. There was no doubt about it. He was getting it. He didn't have to – he had a great year because he batted in front of Judge. I mean, he could have a great year not batting in front of Judge either. It's not the biggest factor. But now he's really under pressure because he's going to be expected to deliver a World Series. I mean, there was pressure for him on the Yankees, to make it happen. The team itself more so than him. Now the pressure's on him more than the Mets to get them to the World Series and get them a championship, because he did sign that big deal. And he, maybe it's funny how things turn out. Maybe this is, in the long run, this is more beneficial for the Yankees. Like you said, maybe they got a wake-up call, that they had to get better in other areas. Even if they brought him in, they were still going to have to revamp the infield. What were you going to do? You're going to play Judge another year in center field? I wouldn't have minded that if they had assigned Soto. I would probably ask Judge to move to left field and have Dominguez play center. I still think Dominguez should be their center fielder, and you hope he wins the job. But even again, as we started the show with, even if when they had Soto last year, they were a top-heavy lineup that had no leadoff presence and really no cleanup presence until Austin Wells filled that, as best he could. You're putting a lot of pressure on a rookie, and he did well for a while. And I think he got a little fatigued at the end. He caught a lot of games. I don't think he was used to the workload. I don't think he ever expected to get that kind of workload. He hardly took any days off, and he DH'd. He never DH'd really. Very rarely did they play Trevino. He played a lot, so I think he got tired at the end. And pitchers made a little adjustments on him. So if they can steady that presence at cleanup and leadoff, their lineup potentially could be more efficient without Soto than it was with Soto. Maybe not as powerful or attractive to certain people, but maybe more efficient where you don't put as much pressure on your pitching staff because the bottom of your lineup was really non-existent at times.
Absolutely. And that was one, and that was, listen, if the Yankees did sign Soto back, I wasn't going to complain. I don't think any of us Yankees fans, we were going to complain. But then the big question was, were they going to be able to make other additions to the team? Because, okay, you signed Soto back, but there's still things that they need to improve on. Were they going to be able to maneuver and trade for certain players? Were they going to be able to sign sign these players? Were they going to be able to sign Max Fried? Right. I know that was the thing, because even with Soto and without Juan Soto, I said they need another pitcher in that rotation, because going into 2025, I wasn't comfortable going into that with that starting rotation. I mean, the only guys really, Garrett Cole, you could always depend on him. Rodon, Carlos Rodon he actually had a great 2024 season. He had his moments of giving up the long ball, but he had a good 2024 season.
Yeah, if he can cut down on that and let him go a little longer in games where he had it going. Yeah. It's like they were so quick to lift him, too much. Let him go. Let him get you into the 6th and 7th inning. There were games where he was rolling and then they wouldn't let him go. Too much reliance on the bullpen at times. Let these guys go when they're rolling. That's one of Boone's got to learn to do that and get away from the analytical stuff that you can't go through the lineup 3 times. Rodon's got good stuff. He's a decent pitcher. Yeah, he had home run ball. That was a big problem for him. But Cole had that problem in 2022, remember? Yes. He gave up a lot of home runs. And then in 2023, that number went down drastically. He ended up winning the Cy Young. And here's another thing. They didn't even have Cole the whole season last year. They only had him half a season. And to their credit, they were able to survive until he came back. And I don't think he was right the whole year long. To me, his body language, he pitched a great game in the World Series, to his credit. But I don't think his body language told me that he wasn't right. You look at him on the mound, he didn't seem comfortable. Remember, he had that incident where they intentionally walked Rafael Devers in that spot, and he took a lot of abuse for that. I don't think he was right at the end of the year. I think that the shoulder was still a problem. I think you'll see a lot, if he's healthy, you'll see a lot better Cole, a more 2023 Cole than you saw in 2024.
Yeah, no, I have all the confidence in Garrett Cole, and with him, still being on the team, he's gonna retire as a New York Yankee. I feel like that's inevitable. I feel like that's gonna happen. So, I think he'll be better in 2025. I feel good about him. I feel good about Rodon. And like you said, let the guy pitch. If he's in a groove, let him go. And, don't be so quick to take him out. We've seen it. That's where some of the decision making I don't always agree with, because by the time mid-season, let's say, right, the bullpen, they're taxed. And, you don't want that with your bullpen.
Plus, you bring your bullpen in so many times in a 4-game series. Yeah. There's going to be no mystery, The familiarity is gone. That's what happens in a short series when you use your bullpen a lot. They've seen these guys, so there's no mysteries as to what they're throwing. They get more of a game plan hitting-wise going against these guys if you use them so much. Now, Luis Heel is another guy who's going to have to improve his command. He also ran into trouble with the walks and not putting guys away when he got, ahead in the count. But it was his first go-round, so you give him a pass and you hope he can improve upon that because he's got dynamite lights out stuff. I actually thought, when they were having closer problems, I thought the Yankees should have considered him for the closer role to maybe move him into the bullpen last year. But okay, you want to keep him as a starter? He can get through the lineup 2-3 times once he gets that command, because he's got dynamite stuff. He's got a live arm. His fastball's got life. It's not flat. So yeah, he'd be worth it as a starter, even though I thought maybe used him as a closer last year, but it worked out in the end and they got to the World Series. So he's going to have to improve his command as well and take a step forward. He may have some pitfalls in his second year because teams now know what to expect from him. So he's going to have to make those adjustments as well.
Yeah, and I am a Luis Hill fan. I do like Luis Hill. You know what? He impressed me last year. He won that spot for fifth pitcher in the rotation when Cole went down. It was between him and Will Warren, and he performed better than Warren. I know at the time some fans were upset because a lot of fans really wanted to see Warren in that rotation, myself included, because I wanted to see what Warren was about because he was highly talked about. But when Hill won the job, and which rightfully so he did out of spring training, I was like, all right, let's see what he could do. And he filled it. He did well. He did quite well. But like you said, he does have a problem with command.
Right.
And if he does get himself into some jams, but which is what the impressive thing with him is that he's able to get himself out of it. So, I was very impressed with that. But if he can work on his command and if he can just, not fluster himself, I think he'd be an excellent, in this case, he'd probably be an excellent number 3, number 4 in the starting rotation, because I think the rotation as of right now is probably going to go Cole, Fried, Rodon, probably Hill would be number 4 right as of right now. So
4, or he could move up in the rotation past Rodon if he's out pitching him. And also, I could see why they didn't want to use Heel in that trade for Tucker, only because Tucker was an impending free agent. I don't think they wanted to go down that road again of bringing in a one-year guy, even though he would fit their team like a glove. And they could always take a shot at him next year in free agency when he does become available. Yeah,
and Kyle Tucker, I know, that he's an excellent ball player. I think I know he said that he would be open to an extension, but since he got traded to the Cubs, but I don't see him signing an extension after seeing what Juan Soto got in free agency. I'm not saying he's going to get $700 million, but he's going to have a payday. As long as he has a good season, I think he's going to get paid. The Yankees are going to explore him. The Yankees are definitely going to look into him, and I think they should.
Because Aaron Judge is going to have to move to first base at some point.
So you think
he's not going to finish the length of his contract in right field? I really don't believe that. I think he's going to have to make that move at some point to take the pressure off his legs. Either that or become a DH when Stanton's contract is up.
So, that's what I was thinking more of, Howie, was that maybe because Judge is getting a little bit older and, at some point, he's not going to be playing the outfield. I was thinking he probably takes over the DH role once, Giancarlo Stanton's contract is up, which Giancarlo Stanton's contract, you have him for 25, 26, I believe 27. And I think he has a club option for 28, which.
Yeah, I think it's 3 more years.
Yeah. And I don't see the Yankees exercising his club option. So at that point, they'll probably just let him walk.
Yeah, but Judge would have to have the mentality to be a DH and accept it. You don't know if he wants to do that. And again, if Mickey Mantle can move to first base, Aaron Judge can move to first base. Mantle, Judge is a good athlete. I'm sure he could adapt, pretty well over there and make that move. I think the Yankees, that's what the Yankees should have done with Gary Sanchez when they had him, because he was not he's not a good defensive catcher. It was his bat that was keeping him in the major leagues, And I think he signed with somebody recently, didn't he? I'm not sure. I forgot who it was.
He signed with the Orioles, I believe. I think it was the Orioles.
Right. Yeah,
he signed with the Orioles. It was on a
the Yankees should have been trying him at first base when they had him on the team, because we all saw he wasn't a good catcher. He didn't inspire any confidence in the pitchers. That's what Garrett Cole probably had no. They had no. That's why you remember when he was catching games, they gave up a lot of home runs because pitchers didn't feel they could bounce the ball to the hitters because they didn't feel that he would block it. So they used to keep the ball up in the zone, and that led to a lot of home runs by the opposing hitters. The pitcher's got to have confidence that he could throw a ball in the dirt and it's going to get blocked. They don't have that confidence. They're going to leave balls up in the zone. And that's going to lead to disaster.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Now with you brought up the catcher situation. So, I know, you brought up Austin Wells. How do you feel about Austin Wells going into year 2? I know he played his first official season. He was a rookie. I know he had his ups and downs. There's definitely areas that he absolutely needs to improve in. There's no doubt that he's going to be your guy that the Yankees are going to start most games over Trevino. Do you feel good about Austin Wells going into year 2? Do you think he'll improve, or how do you see it playing out? Again, I know you don't have a crystal ball in front of you, but how would you see it playing out?
I can tell you this: when he was struggling in the early going, I said to everybody, "This guy's going to hit." I have strong belief in Austin Wells. I like him a lot. His defense has shown he's better than what he was being projected to be defensively. If pitchers could hold the runners on better, he'll throw some guys out at second. I think the pitchers like throwing to him. They have a lot of confidence with him behind the plate. I think he gives them a potent left-handed bat, especially in Yankee Stadium. And he's shown he can hit to the opposite field. He's not just a dead pull hitter. But, I'm big on Austin Wells. I don't know. Yeah. I hope he takes a couple of steps forward. He could have a setback here and there. He tends to start off slow when he's moved up a level, and he tends to progress nicely in his second year. He had to go around the league. As we mentioned before, I thought he was fatigued at the end of the year. His bat looked a little slow. He was probably trying too hard when it came down to it, trying to do too much. They put him in the cleanup spot, and they got, they had the worst production from the cleanup spot almost in baseball last year. But when he went in there, that kind of improved a whole lot, even though it didn't last the whole season. He sputtered at the end, and then they had to move him down. So this is a guy who could fill that, maybe that 7, 8, 9 part of your batting order, even 6, with a productive left-hand bat. I'm comfortable with Austin Wells. I think they have something there.
Yeah, I like Austin Wells too. I think he has a lot of potential. I think this year 2 in his Major League Baseball career, I think we'll see a different Austin Wells. Hopefully, and I like him better in the, like you said, in the 7th, 8th, 9th spot. I don't think he's a cleanup hitter. Although when they did have him at cleanup, he was hitting well at one point, but then you saw his production go down. So hopefully the Yankees do a better job with the number 4 spot. Do you foresee Jose Trevino being the backup catcher, or can you see the Yankees trading him potentially?
I think if he accepts the role, I think he'll be fine with it. He's a nice backup. That gives them a nice righty-lefty, catching tandem. One right-hand bat, one left-hand bat. Now, Trevino's not a great hitter. He had that lucky year a couple of years ago. You can't really rely on him offensively, but at least to take that off day for Wells, and be that guy to play every couple of days or something, or a couple of days a week, to give Wells a breather. Yeah, I could see him being that guy. I think they're pretty set at catcher with those two.
Okay. And the last thing we'll talk about is the bullpen. I know the Yankees. I think they're going to make they're going to add additional arms to the bullpen. I think they did say that they were going to be aggressive with it. Now they did sign back Loaisiga. Like I said earlier in the show, I was surprised. I thought they were going to part ways because Loaisiga, great stuff, but he's always hurt. The guy just cannot stay healthy to save his life. They traded for Devin Williams, which, again, that was a trade that I don't think any of us saw coming. But I liked the trade, and they gave up nothing to get Devin Williams. That was a brilliant trade by Cashman. But how do you see the bullpen? What do you think is good? Do you see them adding any big names to the bullpen, or you think it's just going to be like names that we haven't even heard of? Because we know the Yankees have done that, and some of those arms end up being really panning out.
Well, I don't think Tanner Scott is in there on their radar because he's going to be asking a lot of money.
Mm-hmm.
But he's what they need. They need a couple of lefties in that pen, to get guys out in the American League East like Devers, and Gunnar Henderson and those left-hand hitters. They need a little more balance in the bullpen. Loizaga is capable if he's healthy. I heard the Mets were very high on him. They wanted to sign him. Maybe the Yankees wanted to keep him away from the Mets, but you shouldn't operate that way, bringing a guy just to keep him away from another team. You bring him in with the conviction that he's going to help your team and not worry about what the circumstances are, and keeping him away from somebody else. But they need a couple of lefties in that pen. Tim Hill worked out. I mean, he could come back in a very inexpensive contract. Cousins he's another righty. They need a couple of lefties in there to balance it out because you're going to need a left-hander to get out some of these left-hand hitters in the American League East.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. And it's I'm always a fan of lefty arms in the bullpen. But yeah, I mean, Tim Hill is a guy I know, earlier in the offseason, they talked about maybe reuniting, and he wouldn't cost you a lot. They can agree on a 1-year deal potentially. So you could bring, Tim Hill back. As far as other lefty arms, I mean, yeah, Tanner Scott, I would love to have Tanner Scott, but yeah, I don't. After getting Devin Williams, I don't think the Yankees are going to look into Tanner Scott. But it is the Yankees; they are known to surprise people. But realistically, yeah, I don't see Tanner Scott. I don't know what other lefty arms they could potentially go after. I think they will probably explore more in a trade with teams to see if there's any lefties that they can bring in.
Yeah, the guy they got from the Dodgers, Clayton, he's not a lefty, is he? Clayton Beater.
Clayton Beater's a righty.
Yeah, I thought so. But
yeah.
Maybe they make an inexpensive move with teams that have known to produce arms, like even the Miami Marlins. They have some good arms in their organization. Now maybe they can pluck a left-hander from them or from the Dodgers. The teams that have shown that they have good farm systems when it comes to pitching. Sometimes you explore those teams more than the obvious candidates, and you get a diamond in the rough, so to speak. Where you make an inexpensive deal and you pick up an arm that becomes a good factor for you in the bullpen. So I don't know if there's a free agent arm out there they go after, except for Tim Hill. He's very inexpensive, but again, he could be a guy that's inconsistent too. I don't know how reliable he is, even though he had a good year. I know he should have been brought in to face Freddie Freeman in Game 1. That was a big mistake. But, the fact is, he wasn't that great with the White Sox. The Yankees took a flyer on him. It paid off for last year. Just because if they brought him back, I don't know if that would pay off again. So I'm sure they're looking. I'm sure they're exploring certain avenues, to pick up a left-hand pitcher here and there. You may be surprised. You may see a surprise, acquisition down the road that you didn't expect. But they know they need more balance in the bullpen, and they've talked about balance in the bullpen. So they're looking in that direction.
Absolutely. So going into the 2025 season, again, I know the Yankees still need to fill holes. There's still holes to fill. Do you feel confident that they will fill those holes, and do you feel confident going into the 2025 season once the Yankees get the right pieces?
Yeah, I do. I feel I'm much more confident than the night they lost Soto. So,
sure.
Because they made some really smart moves, and they didn't cave in like they did 10 years ago when they lost Robinson Cano and signed Jacoby Ellsbury and Brian McCann. I liked the Brian McCann signing. I hated the Ellsbury signing, and the Ellsbury signing was a disaster. So I'm glad they didn't overreact the wrong way. They've made some shrewd, smart moves this time around. Look, injuries are always going to derail these moves. If they don't work out, it's going to be because of injury, not because these guys can't perform. But I like the game plan here. I like what they've done. I think they've been smart. Sometimes, as I told you, they get a little too cute. Like, look, we're the Yankees, and every move we make is going to work out. It don't work out that way all the time. And they got a little burned by that kind of attitude. So I like the fact that they realized what they did what their flaws were, and they're trying to address them. And they know they had to get better defensively. They have to get more athletic. They have to rely more on the running game, more so than they have in past years. They can't be so home run reliant as they've been in previous years. Look, they have one of the great home run hitters in the game, but they can't rely on him to, they got to pick him up when he's not going. Now, he takes a lot of abuse for his postseason failures, but if they had other options and other ways to produce, you wouldn't be focusing on that as much. Sometimes you get a diamond in the rough that picks it up in the postseason and carries a team. Look, Shohei Ohtani didn't have a great postseason in the World Series. Even before he was injured, he wasn't doing that great, but other guys picked it up. So they're not going to focus on Shohei Ohtani failing in the clutch, even though he was such a great player during the regular season. You got to get away from being home run reliant, especially in close games. As I cited before, the extra inning games, all those times they lost at home, when those games are there to be taken, you get an extra inning game in the playoffs when you got to get a run. Now they got a run in game one, and then they couldn't hold the lead, so that kind of derailed the whole World Series. They kind of set a bad tone there. So they know where their flaws are. They look like they're addressing them. I like what they've done so far, and I like the track they're on.
Yeah, 100%. I'm again right there with you. And the situational hitting, that's what they need to improve on, and hopefully we see that going into next season where they're not. I mean, I appreciate the home run ball. Don't get me wrong, but you can't rely on that all the time. You got to.
Well, that's also where the running game comes into play. Not so much stealing bases, but at least be a threat to steal. Can you name how many times pitchers actually threw over on Yankee base runners last year? I wish that I could look up that stat. I guarantee you that was in the bottom of the league, that they didn't even throw over a whole lot. You got to make pitchers think and make mistakes. And that's what the running game does. It makes pitchers make mistakes. And they didn't have an option. They didn't have a penchant for doing that a whole lot. And that's why they've lost in these playoffs in recent years. Now they were able to get to the World Series last year, but the previous playoff rounds, they got swept by the Astros in 2022. 2021 they lost. 2020 that condensed season was nonsense. 2019 they lost to the Astros. They kept losing the Astros. They never put pressure on their opposing pitchers. You got to put pressure on these guys to make them make mistakes. And when you do that, that's going to help you in situational hitting because they're going to make mistakes. Also, here's a stat I just remembered that I looked up when I was writing a column about what went wrong. There's a stat called extra base, percentage. I forgot what it was, called, what it was actually labeled, but it's a stat that measured how many times you took the extra base, like went from first to third or scored from second on a base hit and things like that, but mostly first to third or going to second on a single and turning that into a double. That they were last in the league in that category. Who led the league in that category? I can give you one guess because you probably guess it, but there were two teams that were tied. I'll give you one guess who led the league in that category if you think.
Is it one of their division rivals?
No, it's somebody they played in the playoffs.
The Royals?
The Dodgers.
That was good. That was going to be my next guess was the Dodgers. Yeah, makes sense.
You know who the other team was? You'll never guess it. It was the Tigers.
Oh wow! Yeah,
which means which tells you they weren't a great offensive team run wise, but they maximized what they had with their efficiency. Yes. Did you ever see the Yankee guy? The Yankees were station to station.
Yes.
Right. Again, that puts pressure on the defense when you know that they're going to go first to third or they're going to go to second on a ball in the gap and take a chance. Remember, the Dodgers said that they could put pressure on the Yankees with that, ability to take the extra base, to make them make throws to the infield. And look what happened in game one. Torres fails to block that ball because Shohei's going to second. And then he ended up at third because the ball bounced away from Torres, who didn't smother it. That ended up being the tie and run and kind of changed the complexion of that inning. The Yankees need to do more of that to change the complexion of an inning, and that would help them become less reliant on the home run.
Yeah, well, again, yeah, those were some of the flaws that the team had. I mean, yeah, they made it to the World Series, they made it that far, but it's those little things, those little mistakes.
Right.
It
How many
it adds up.
times did they fail to get the runner in from third with less than 2 out? I hate to revert to the dynasty years,
Yeah,
when they won the 4 out of 5, but
yeah.
that was almost automatic in
Hmm.
those days, right? They get a runner on third, 1 out. How many times did they score? Maybe 85% of the time. It was almost automatic,
Yeah,
But these Yankees recently, I mean, how many times do they frustrate? You get the bases loaded, they get 1 run, or they wouldn't get the run in from third, or they get a run on an out, on a ground out instead of a sacrifice fly. I mean, these little things add up, for your team down the road. And also the opposing scouts are watching you. They realize what's going on. And that's what the Dodgers did. The Dodgers took advantage. They saw they were scouted. They scouted the Yankees very well. They knew where to attack and where to poke at their holes, and it helped them win that series, and overwhelmingly too. So
yeah, and you saw, yeah, and it's not like the Dodgers did anything real extravagant. They just played fundamental sounded baseball. I mean, that's what they did.
right, I felt like I was watching the Yankees of the late '90s playing the
Yeah,
Yankees. Right.
yeah, yeah, absolutely. No, definitely. I mean, and again, I hope the Yankees do fix that. I hope they do improve on that. I hope they saw that and acknowledge that. So
I think they've come to grips with that. That's what I feel good about what they're doing this offseason. I think
yeah,
they realize where they need to, really pick things up if they're going to go all the way.
yeah. Like I said, I think this was a way. I think a fire was lit under Hal Steinbrenner. I think I have never seen him and Cashman, especially Hal. I've never seen him pivot so quickly after losing out on a star player. I've never seen him be like, okay, we cannot stress this. Like we gotta make some things happen, and we cannot wait. We just, even if it means to overpay within reason, of course, we do what we have to do. We gotta explore all avenues. Everything is on the table. No one is safe. That
Right.
sort of thing. And you know what? It's like, hey, this is what you need to do. If you're trying to get back into the playoffs, if you're trying to get back to if you're trying to still be contenders, which the Yankees are always contenders, no matter what. They're always in the conversation.
But
So
they've opened some eyes from opposing teams around the league, because they're getting a lot of credit for what they've been doing. They had a plan B in place. They knew they could lose Soto. They realized they could lose Soto to the Mets. They knew the Mets were
oh, yeah.
a real player this time around. They realized that there was a chance they could lose him. So obviously they've had a plan B. Let's see when they take the field whether it's going to be successful or not. But I think what they're doing right now, you don't win the World Series in the off season. You win it on the field.
Mm-hmm.
And right now they're putting together a team, where it looks like it's going to be pretty competitive, and I hope the fans will buy in. Hopefully they fill these other holes, and then you see where the chips land, when they take the field next year. Don't forget that if you think back during the season, making the World Series masked a lot of things that happened during the year. They were awful against National League teams. They got swept by the Reds at home.
Yeah.
They lost the series to the Cardinals at home, 2 crappy teams in the NL Central. Their record against the Nash, they got swept by the Mets. They had a terrible record against National League teams. And look what happened in the World Series against the National League team. They got overwhelmed. So these things were kind of like camouflaged. There are certain things that happened during the season that tell you. That's why when I came on with you, the last time before the playoffs, where I was worried about their flaws were going to catch up with them, they overcame them against the Royals and Indians, because the Guardians, because those 2 teams couldn't take advantage of what the Yankees didn't do well. The Dodgers did, and that's why they ended up winning the World Series in 5 games.
Yeah, the interleague play in 2024 for the New York Yankees was not great. They were
Not
losing to
good at all.
teams. It was pretty bad. I will say. I mean, in the back of my mind, I'm like, okay, it could be one of those things where it was like a one-off thing, or they struggled, but no, they truly did not play well in those against those teams in interleague play. They should have beaten the teams that they should have beaten, but it's just essentially those teams. They played fundamental baseball. They stuck to the basics. So that's how they beat the Yankees, and
Especially at home. They
especially
weren't
at
that
home.
great a home team last year. I think they were
No,
44 and 37. That's not a great home record for a championship team. To their credit, they were good on the road, but they were not. They didn't take advantage of the home games. They didn't sweep they didn't win a 4-game series until the Red Sox in September, late September. They took 3 out of 4. The other 4-game series, they either lost 3 out of 4 or they split their home 4-game series. Remember, they won the first 2 against Seattle, and they lost the next 2. And there was another 4-game series early in the year that they split, and I think there was one where they lost 3 out of 4.
it was against Oakland. They split
Right.
a 4-game series against
Split.
Oakland.
Yeah, a
And I'm
crappy
like,
Oakland. You got to win 3 out of 4 at home against a crappy team.
oh, 100%. Yeah, no, Yankees home record, not great. Their away record, I think they had the best away record, if I'm not mistaken.
I think they won 52 road games.
Yeah.
I'm not sure.
I think they had the best record away from the stadium. I think they had the best away record in all of baseball, which
Right.
is
But teams came into Yankee Stadium with no fear.
yeah.
That should have been reversed. They should have won the 52 at home and finish over. That's the old formula. Win like 50 to 54 games at home if possible, and then be over 500 on the road. They kind of reversed that formula, but teams came into the Bronx and they weren't intimidated.
Yeah, and that's highly unusual because usually the Yankees that we all know they have a better home record than they do away.
Even in the playoffs, they lost
yeah.
the game at home to Kansas City. Right? They lost the game. They lost the game at home to Cleveland, and they were 1-2 at home against the Dodgers. No, they didn't lose at home to Cleveland.
Yeah,
they lost one to Kansas City, and they were 1-2 against the Dodgers.
Yep. Yeah. And again, going into 2025, hopefully those numbers improve, those stats improve.
Right, that's got to be better.
That's got to be better. There's no doubt about it. But yeah, at the end of the day, look, I like the additions that the Yankees have made thus far. They're trying to put a quality team together to compete, and I feel like that's you have to have that to if you're trying to be a championship caliber team. The Yankees are. I think they're far from done. I know you're involved. I know you've been. That you talk with folks, and I'm sure they're far from done. So, and that's the way it should be because there are other additions that they need to make. And I think I'm hoping we hear some more news. I know Christmas is in a week, so I'm hoping something happens before then. So because once we get into January, I feel like January is going to be a lot of downtime, not a lot of noise, not a lot of action. So, I'm hoping the Yankees do something because before you know it, spring training right around the corner. When you think about it.
I know there's a Zoom tomorrow with Bellinger, so we'll see. What's said there, and like you said, who knows? You can't expect too much in the next week with the holidays.
True.
But I'm sure, things will pick up after Christmas and New Year's if nothing happens in the next few days. So,
yeah.
They want to get things done before spring camp starts in February.
Yeah, February 14th. That's when pitchers and catchers report. So, we're, let's see, doing my math here.
Just under 2 months away.
Yeah, 56 days, so to be exact. And, it's not that far off. It's almost here.
Right.
It'll be here before we know it. And before you know it, it'll be opening day 2025, once March 27th comes around. So, yeah, I'm looking forward to it. But I feel confident about the Yankees, and I'm glad they pivoted quickly. They had a plan B in place, and they're not messing around. This is the New York Yankees that I know. that they're, they get the right players and to fill in those holes. And let's just see what happens, Howie. I mean, hopefully we expect some good things. But any plans for the off season, or anything you're up to in this off season,
Yeah,
Howie?
just follow the website if you can. If you want to, get my opinion on certain things, nysportsday.com.
Okay, my sports take, yeah.
I put a lot of off-season columns there when news is made, and if I hear anything, and I'm looking forward to it too. The season is a grind sometimes, even for me as a scorer. So a couple of days, it takes about 2 weeks for me to get the bug back, and get the enthusiasm back. So the season went long this year. Luckily, into the World Series, I got to score a World Series game again, which is a thrill. I never take that for granted. I've done 7 of those. So, hoping for another big year coming up. And, I'll be around the stadium. And also I do the Mets, because I'm around the Mets too. So I'll see a lot of Juan Soto as well. And, we'll see what happens with Soto. I'm sure a lot of Yankee fans are going to keep their eye out on what happens with him over there. They come in on May 16th. He's not going to be greeted well, I'm sure. And he's going to get the treatment. So, we'll see what happens.
Yeah. Do you know what time the Zoom call with Cody Bellinger is tomorrow?
I'm not sure. I think it may be 11 o'clock.
11 o'clock. Okay. Cool. Yeah. So for anybody who wants to, if you're able to tune in, I don't know if the fans are able.
Well, it's only for the media.
Oh, it's only for the media. Okay.
No, it's not a fan thing.
Okay. Yeah. Well, there you go. 11 o'clock. So yeah, let's see what happens. Howie, again, thank you for coming on last minute. I know our friend Joe texted me saying, "Hey, Howie is able to come on." I said, "You know what? Let's have Howie come on. I'll love to have him on and get his thoughts on the Yankees 24 season, the off season, going into 2025." So, yeah, again, Howie, thank you for coming on. And of course, you could always text me if you hear something. I won't spread it, but
Right.
But yeah, let me know, man.
Sure, anytime. Enjoy.
All right, Howie. But yeah, we'll get you back on here again at some point. We'd love to get you back on here, and we can go from there.
Okay, great. Always enjoy it.
All right, thank you again, Howie. All right, and folks, we will end the stream here. That was Howie Carpin. Thank you, Howie, again for coming on. Greatly appreciated, and shout out to our friend Joe for setting this up, for reaching out to me. So. Hopefully you all enjoyed the conversation. Hopefully that was a lot of insight. Howie's been involved with baseball for a very long time. And so hopefully you all got something out of it. It's always a good conversation to have someone who has been involved with baseball and has been involved with like the Yankees organization. But thank you all for tuning in. And as Gusto's saying, 3 more likes to 100. So yeah, if there's 3 people out there that have not hit that like button, please hit that like button, and let's get to 100 likes. I love getting to 100 likes. It does really help out the live stream, and I do appreciate all the new subscribers. We are 17, about a little less than 20 away from hitting that 1,300 mark. So if there's anybody out there that is watching this for the first time, you're really enjoying this, hit that subscribe button and join the Strike Zone crew, join the Strike Zone family. I would greatly appreciate it. Folks in the chat, thank you all for tuning in. I had over 300 people between X and YouTube, so thank you all for tuning in. If you're watching this on X, go to my homepage, hit that link. I got the link to the YouTube page. Come over, hit that, and hit that subscribe button and join in. Obviously, if anything happens, if anything comes out, I'll go live. All right. I appreciate everybody coming on. Shout out to everybody in the chat. I saw all of you. So thank you all for your continued support. Let's keep this channel growing. Let's keep this channel going, guys. I had a lot of fun tonight. I hope you all did too. Until then, see you all next time. And woo, let's go 100 likes. Thank you all for making that happen. 100 likes. Thank you all so much. You guys and gals are the best. Thank you all so much. And yeah, thank you all. So for making that happen. But folks, enjoy your evening. Have a good night. And again, if anything else comes up, if anything happens, if any breaking news, I will go live and we will chat about it. Thank you all for coming on. Have a good night. See you all next time.